The GPS in my box truck showed 6:47 p.m. when I pulled into our driveway on Maple Street. Another Friday in the books. Another 14 hours of hauling packages through Philadelphia's maze of construction zones and double-parked cars. My back ached like hell, but the tips were good. Real good. That new supplier in Fishtown had been haggling with me all week over bulk rates, but we'd finally hammered out a deal that put an extra $200 in my pocket. 18 years of marriage, and Lisa still didn't quite get what I did for a living. She'd wave from the window as I loaded up at dawn, already filming one of her little Instagram videos about mornings with the Castellano family. The ring light glowing in our bedroom window made our modest row home look like some kind of suburban TV studio. I killed the engine and sat for a moment, watching her through the kitchen window. She was setting up her phone again, probably filming another day-in-the-life reel. The woman could make folding laundry look like high fashion with the right filter and a sponsored hashtag for detergent. "We deliver," I muttered to myself, grabbing my thermos from the cup holder. "This family's on schedule." The smell of grilled steak hit me as soon as I opened the front door. Lisa's voice drifted from the kitchen, bright and animated as she talked to her phone camera. "And Chris just got home from another long day keeping Philadelphia running. Hashtag delivery driver life. Hashtag blessed family. Hashtag..." She spotted me and lowered the phone. "Hey babe, perfect timing." Brooke looked up from her chemistry homework at the kitchen table. At 16, she'd inherited Lisa's blue eyes and my stubborn streak. "Dad, did you know Mom's been filming TikToks during my cheer practice?" "It's Instagram Reels," Lisa corrected, wiping her hands on a dish rag. "And it's called building a brand." "It's called embarrassing," Dylan chimed in from the living room, not looking up from his gaming setup. My 14-year-old had discovered streaming last year and was convinced he'd be the next big thing on Twitch. I kissed Lisa's cheek, catching a whiff of her new perfume, something floral and expensive. "Kids giving you grief about your influencer empire? They just don't understand the hustle." She bumped my hip with hers. "Kind of like how I don't understand why you insist on working those 16-hour routes." "Because those 16-hour routes pay for your ring lights and the kids' phones." She laughed and swatted my arm. "Go wash up. Dinner's almost ready." In the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. 44 years old, weathered from 2 decades behind the wheel, but still the same guy who'd married Lisa in 2006 at the VFW Hall down on Broad Street. We'd been so broke back then that the reception featured a keg and homemade lasagna. But we'd been happy. Genuinely happy. "Chris," Brooke called from downstairs. "Mom's making Dad's famous steaks." I grinned. Dad's famous steaks were literally just salt, pepper, and whatever marinade was on sale at the grocery store, but the kids had been calling them that since they were little. When I came back downstairs, the whole family was gathered around our small dining table. Lisa had actually put away her phone, a minor miracle. "So, Brooksy," I said, cutting into my steak, "how's the cheer squad looking for next year?" "Good, I think. Madison's mom is being weird about the fundraiser, but Coach says I'm definitely captain material for senior year." She paused, glancing at Lisa. "Mom missed practice again today, though." "I was at that wellness retreat thing in Manayunk," Lisa said quickly. "You know, the one I've been posting about? They're considering me for their ambassador program." I nodded, but something felt off. Lisa had been doing a lot of these wellness retreats and brand collaborations lately. Always on weeknights, always with her girlfriends from work. Not that I minded her having a social life. Hell, after 18 years together, We both needed our space. Dylan, how's the streaming going? I asked. My son's face lit up. Really good. I had like 30 viewers yesterday when I was playing that new Battle Royale game. And look! He pulled out his phone and showed me a video. I found this old footage from when Brooke was little. The screen showed a much younger version of our family at some long-forgotten barbecue. Lisa was laughing, holding toddler Dylan while 5-year-old Brooke chased Bubbles in the background. We looked so easy back then. Uncomplicated. That's sweet, buddy, I said, ruffling his hair. Just remember, homework first, gaming second. I know. After dinner, Lisa disappeared upstairs for her nighttime routine, which really meant another hour of filming content for her Instagram stories. I helped the kids clean up and watched Brooke practice her cheer routine in the living room, while Dylan explained some incomprehensible strategy for his latest game. This was good. This was what I'd been working toward for 18 years. A family that functioned, kids who were thriving, a wife who was building something of her own. So why did I feel like something was slipping away? The next week blurred together in a haze of traffic, deliveries, and negotiating with suppliers who thought they could shortchange me on bulk rates. By Thursday, I'd managed to squeeze an extra 15% out of that Fishtown deal, enough to maybe take Lisa somewhere nice for our anniversary next month. I was thinking about restaurants when I stopped at the dry cleaners to pick up our weekly order. Same routine as always. Lisa's work blouses, my good shirts for when I had to meet with dispatch, and whatever the kids had managed to stain during the week. "Here you go, Mr. Castellano," the woman behind the counter said, handing me the plastic-wrapped bundle. "That rush job your wife brought in yesterday came out real nice." "Rush job?" "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "What was the stain again?" "Oh, the usual." She waved her hand vaguely. "Looked like cologne or something mixed with... well, you know how it is." I didn't know how it was, but I nodded anyway and took the clothes. In the truck, I unzipped the bag and found the mystery garment. A men's dress shirt, size large. I wore extra large. The fabric still held the faint scent of expensive cologne, mixed with something else. Something that made my stomach tighten. I sat in the parking lot for a long moment, staring at the shirt. There could be an innocent explanation. Maybe it belonged to Jake from Lisa's office. Maybe she'd offered to help him out with his dry cleaning as some kind of favor. Jake, Lisa's co-worker from the dental practice where she worked part-time. The guy who'd been showing up at our barbecues more often lately, always with some excuse about being in the neighborhood. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Running late tonight. Girls' night at that new place in Manayunk. Don't wait up." I stared at the message, then at the shirt and the bag, then back at the message. Something was off route. Time to reroute. Friday night, I grilled burgers in our backyard while Lisa got ready for another girls' night. She'd been upstairs for 2 hours, and I could hear her hairdryer running between the sounds of her taking selfies. "Dad, can you help me with this math homework?" Brooke asked, sliding into the chair next to me on the deck. "Sure thing, kiddo." But I was barely paying attention to her algebra problems. Instead, I was watching Lisa through the kitchen window as she came downstairs in a dress I'd never seen before. Something tight and red that showed off the gym membership she'd been using religiously for the past few months. "Earth to Dad," Brooke said. "You're not listening." "Sorry, sweetheart. Let me see that problem again." As we worked through the equations, I caught glimpses of Lisa reapplying her lipstick in the hallway mirror and checking her phone constantly. When a car honked in our driveway, she practically sprinted for the door. Bye, babe. Don't wait up, she called out. Through the window, I watched her climb into the passenger seat of a car I didn't recognize. A dark sedan with tinted windows. Not exactly typical for a girl's night out with the dental hygienists. Dad? Brooke's voice was smaller now. Is everything okay with you and Mom? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was growing up to be smart, maybe too smart. The kind of smart that picked up on things adults thought they were hiding. Why would you ask that, Brooksy? She shrugged, but her eyes stayed serious. You guys just seem different lately. Like you're both here, but not really here, you know? I wanted to tell her everything was fine, that marriages went through phases, that sometimes adults just needed space to figure things out. But sitting there with my 16-year-old daughter who was already more perceptive than I'd been at twice her age, I couldn't bring myself to lie. Sometimes grown-up relationships get complicated, I said finally. But whatever happens, me and you and Dylan, we're solid. You understand that, right? She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Now let's finish this homework so you can destroy the competition at tomorrow's meet. Saturday morning started like any other weekend. Dylan was streaming some zombie game to his dozen followers. Brooke was at cheer practice, and Lisa was nursing a hangover while half-heartedly filming a weekend morning routine for her Instagram. I was supposed to be organizing the garage, but instead I found myself studying the laundry hamper. Specifically, I was looking for that red dress Lisa had worn the night before. It wasn't there. I checked our bedroom, the guest bathroom, even the trunk of her car. Nothing. Like the dress had never existed. But I knew what I'd seen. My phone rang. Dispatch calling with a rush delivery that would pay double time if I could get it to Camden and back before noon. Easy money, and it would give me time to think. The drive south through the city usually cleared my head, but today it just gave me more time to replay the last few weeks. Lisa's new clothes, her sudden interest in girls' nights, the way she'd started taking her phone into the bathroom during her routines, and that cologne on the shirt from the dry cleaners. I'd smelled it before, recently. By the time I hit the Walt Whitman Bridge, I knew exactly where. Last weekend's barbecue. Jake had been there, standing too close to Lisa while she flipped burgers and live-streamed the whole thing for her followers. He'd been wearing that same expensive cologne, and when he'd hugged her goodbye, a hug that lasted just a beat too long, I'd caught that exact scent. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I deliver packages for a living. I know how to track shipments, verify delivery addresses, and spot when someone's trying to redirect cargo to the wrong destination. And right now, it felt like my marriage was being rerouted without my knowledge. The smart thing would be to talk to Lisa directly. Ask her about the shirt, about the late nights, about why she needed to get dressed up like she was going clubbing just to hang out with the women from work. But 18 years of marriage had taught me that Lisa was good at explanations. She could make anything sound reasonable, even when my gut was telling me it wasn't. I needed proof, hard evidence, the kind of documentation that couldn't be explained away with a smile and a promise to communicate better. By the time I reached Camden, I'd made up my mind. Time to treat this like any other delivery problem. Methodical, systematic, and thorough. Sunday evening, I sat in my truck outside a Home Depot, staring at the small black device in my palm. A GPS tracker, the kind they sold for keeping tabs on teenage drivers or monitoring company vehicles. Completely legal in Pennsylvania, as long as you owned the vehicle you were tracking. Lisa and I jointly owned the Honda SUV she drove to work every day. The installation took less than 5 minutes. A small magnetic case tucked under the rear bumper, invisible unless you knew where to look. The accompanying app on my phone would show me exactly where that vehicle went and how long it stayed there. I felt like garbage doing it. But I also felt like I was finally taking action instead of just letting my suspicions eat me alive. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Running to Target for face masks and wine. Back in an hour. Want anything? I watched the red dot on my phone's map as it moved through our neighborhood, heading not toward the Target on Ridge Avenue, but toward the Marriott near the airport. It stayed there for 3 hours. Monday morning, Lisa was back to her usual routine, filming her Monday motivation content while making coffee and packing Brooke's lunch. She seemed relaxed, almost glowing, in a way that would have made me happy if I hadn't spent the previous night staring at GPS coordinates. "You're up early," she said, not looking up from her phone camera. "Usually you sleep in after weekend deliveries." "Couldn't sleep." "Everything okay?" Now she looked at me, her blue eyes wide with what looked like genuine concern. I wanted to tell her about the tracker, about the hotel visits, about the dry cleaning receipts I'd found buried in her purse while she was in the shower. Instead, I poured coffee into my thermos and checked the route dispatch had sent for the day. Just thinking about that Fishtown supplier. Still trying to work out the logistics. "You work too hard," she said, going back to her phone. "But that's why I love you. Always thinking 3 steps ahead." If only she knew. That afternoon, I called my old mentor Mike Rodriguez during my lunch break. Mike had driven truck for 30 years before going to law school and opening a practice in South Philly. He specialized in blue-collar divorces, the kind where one spouse had hidden assets and the other spouse had 20 years of marriage to protect. "Chris Castellano," Mike's voice was warm when he picked up. "How the hell are you?" "Been better, to be honest. I might need some advice." "Legal or personal?" "Both, probably." We met that evening at a diner near the Navy Yard. Mike looked exactly the same as he had when he'd taught me how to optimize my routes 15 years ago. Stocky, gray-haired, and sharp as hell. "So," he said after we'd ordered coffee, "what's going on?" I told him everything. The shirt, the late nights, the GPS tracking, the hotel visits. Mike listened without judgment, occasionally asking questions about dates and times. "How long has this been going on?" he asked when I finished. "Hard to say for sure, maybe 3 months? But looking back, probably longer." "You got any concrete evidence besides GPS locations?" "Working on it." Mike nodded slowly. "Pennsylvania's a no-fault state, which means adultery won't affect the divorce itself. But if she's been hiding assets or spending marital money on this affair, that's different. That's dissipation of marital assets, and the court can factor that into property division." "What about the kids?" "At 16 and 14, they'll have some say in custody arrangements. Judges tend to follow the kids' preferences unless there's a compelling reason not to." I stared out the window at the rush hour traffic. I never thought it would come to this. Most people don't. But Chris, if you're going to do this, you need to do it right. Document everything, keep records, and don't do anything that could blow back on you legally. Like what? Like confronting the other guy. Like accessing her personal devices without permission. Like doing anything that could be construed as harassment or intimidation. Mike leaned forward. "You're a smart guy, and you're methodical. Use those strengths, but don't let anger make you stupid." I nodded. though part of me wanted to drive straight to Jake's apartment and have a conversation that ended with him understanding exactly why screwing around with my wife was a bad idea. "One more thing," Mike said as we got ready to leave. "You sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes these things burn out on their own." I thought about Brooke asking if everything was okay, about Dylan's innocent excitement over old family videos, about the 18 years Lisa and I had built together. "I need to know the truth," I said. "Whatever it is." Mike handed me his business card. "Call me when you're ready to make it official. And Chris, take care of yourself through this. Don't let it eat you alive." By Wednesday, I had a routine. Check the GPS tracker during my lunch breaks and after dinner. Lisa's patterns were becoming clear. Work 3 days a week at the dental office, errands that took her to the same hotel twice a week, and girls' nights that always seemed to involve the same mysterious sedan picking her up. The sedan belonged to Jake. A quick check of LinkedIn had given me his full name and employment history. Jake Dale, pharmaceutical sales rep, recently divorced, with a silver BMW that matched the car I'd seen in our driveway. That evening, I followed Lisa to what she'd told me was a wellness retreat in Manayunk. The tracker led me to the parking lot of an upscale tapas restaurant, where I watched through my windshield as she and Jake shared wine and held hands across a table by the window. Seeing it in person hit differently than tracking coordinates on a phone screen. This wasn't just a physical affair. They were comfortable together, intimate in a way that suggested this had been going on for a lot longer than 3 months. I took photos with my phone's zoom lens, making sure to get clear shots of both their faces. Then I drove home, where I found Brooke doing homework at the kitchen table. "Where's Mom?" she asked without looking up. "Some kind of networking event." She chewed on her pen for a moment. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Is Mom having an affair?" The question hit me like a truck to the chest. I sat down heavily in the chair across from her. "What makes you ask that?" "She's been acting weird. Different clothes, different perfume, always on her phone. Plus, Jake from her work keeps liking all her Instagram posts at like midnight." Brooke looked up at me with those too perceptive blue eyes. "I'm not stupid, Dad." I stared at my 16-year-old daughter, wondering when she'd gotten so grown up and why I'd thought we were hiding this from the kids. "I don't know for sure," I said finally, "but I'm trying to find out." "And then what?" "I don't know that either." She nodded, like that was the answer she'd been expecting. "For what it's worth, you're a really good dad. Whatever happens with Mom, Dylan, and I, we know you've got our backs." I had to clear my throat before I could respond. "That means everything to me, kiddo." "Besides," she added with a slight smile, "if she's really cheating with that creep Jake, she's got terrible taste. Did you see his LinkedIn photo? He looks like he sells used cars." Despite everything, I laughed. "Go finish your homework." Thursday brought the breakthrough I'd been waiting for, though not in the way I'd expected. I was installing a dash cam in Lisa's SUV. Pennsylvania's one-party consent laws meant I could record conversations in vehicles I owned. When I found the receipt, it was wedged between the seats, folded and forgotten. $347 at Victoria's Secret, dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, when Lisa had told me she was going shopping for work clothes with her sister. That evening, while Lisa was upstairs working on content, I did something I'd never done in 18 years of marriage. I went through her purse. What I found made my stomach drop. Hotel receipts going back 4 months. Restaurant bills for 2. parking receipts from downtown hotels on days when Lisa was supposed to be at work, and a handwritten note tucked inside her wallet. Thursday, 7 p.m. usual place. Can't wait to see you. J. I photographed everything with my phone, then put it all back exactly where I'd found it. Upstairs, I could hear Lisa on a video call with someone, her voice low and flirty in a way that used to be reserved for me. I know, she was saying, but I can't just disappear. He's not stupid, and the kids are starting to notice. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening. Soon, she continued. I just need to figure out the right way to do this. He's been good to me, Jake. He deserves better than just walking out. There was a pause. Of course I love you too. This is just complicated. I went back to the kitchen and sat at the table, staring at the photos on my phone. 18 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, and a life we'd built together. And she was talking about it like a logistics problem she needed to solve. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your wife's car has been at the Marriott for 2 hours. Thought you should know. A friend. I stared at the message, then checked the GPS tracker. Sure enough, the red dot was at the hotel near the airport. Someone else knew. Someone else had been watching. I was about to text back when Lisa came downstairs, already dressed for another girls' night. You're going out again? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Sarah's having a crisis with her boyfriend. I might be late. Sarah, one of the dental hygienists. I'd met her at the Christmas party last year, a sweet woman in her 50s who'd been happily married for 30 years. Tell Sarah I hope things work out, I said. Lisa kissed my cheek, and I smelled that expensive perfume again. You're the best, babe. Don't wait up. After she left, I called Mike Rodriguez. I've got everything I need, I said when he picked up. GPS records, photos, hotel receipts, the works. How do you want to handle this? I looked around our kitchen, at the family photos on the refrigerator, at Dylan's gaming schedule stuck to the bulletin board, at Brooke's cheer team roster held up with a magnet I'd bought her at the shore last summer. I want to destroy him first, I said, legally and professionally. Then I want to end this marriage in a way that protects my kids and make sure Lisa can't take half of everything I've worked for. Chris, she's been spending our money on hotel rooms and fancy dinners for 4 months, Mike. She's been lying to our kids. She's planning to leave, but wants to make sure she gets the best possible settlement first. My voice was getting louder, but I didn't care. She's playing me, and I'm done being played. Okay, Mike said quietly. What do you need from me? Everything. Forensic accountant, private investigator, whatever it takes. I want to know exactly how deep this goes and exactly how much of our money she's been spending on her boyfriend. I can do that. But Chris, you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. Really ugly. I thought about Brooke's question, about Dylan's innocent trust, about 18 years of believing in something that had apparently been crumbling for months without my knowledge. It's already ugly, I said. Now I'm just making sure I'm the one left standing when it's over. The forensic accountant Mike recommended was a sharp-eyed woman named Janet Bolton, who specialized in finding hidden assets and tracking financial misconduct in divorce cases. She met with me on a Friday afternoon in Mike's office, armed with a laptop and a stack of bank statements I'd printed out. Joint accounts? She asked, scrolling through the data. Everything except her personal checking account, and I've got 3 months of statements for that too. How? Online banking. We've always shared passwords. Janet nodded, making notes. Okay, I'm seeing some interesting patterns here. Large cash withdrawals twice a week, always on the same days. Charges to restaurants you say you haven't been to. Hotel parking fees. She looked up at me. Your wife's not great at hiding her tracks. She probably never thought I'd check. Most people don't. That's why I stay busy. Janet turned her laptop screen toward me. Look at this. She's been taking cash advances on the joint credit card and depositing them into her personal account, then using that account for expenses related to the affair. Is that legal? It's not illegal, but it's dissipation of marital assets. If we can prove the money was spent on the affair, the court can factor that into the property settlement. Mike leaned forward from behind his desk. How much are we talking about? Preliminary estimate. Somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 over the past 4 months. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. 20,000? High-end hotels, expensive restaurants, shopping sprees. Janet pulled up another screen. She's also been buying a lot of personal items, clothes, jewelry, spa treatments, all charged to joint accounts but clearly for her own benefit. Can we get it back? In the settlement, yes. Pennsylvania law allows courts to consider dissipation of marital assets when dividing property. If she spent 20 grand on an affair, that 20 grand can come out of her share of the settlement. Mike was taking notes furiously. What about the other guy, Jake? Any financial connection there? Not that I can see from these records, but there are some charges to restaurants and hotels that line up with his social media posts. Janet showed me her phone. He's been tagging himself at the same places, same dates, sloppy. Jake's posting about their dates on social media? Instagram stories, mostly. They expire after 24 hours, but I've been screenshotting them. Guy thinks he's being discreet, but he's actually creating a perfect timeline of the affair. I stared at the evidence spread out on Mike's desk. Bank records, credit card statements, social media screenshots, GPS logs. The sum total of my marriage's collapse, reduced to data points and dollar amounts. There's one more thing, Janet said. She's been researching divorce attorneys. I found browser history on the shared laptop. She's been looking at law firm websites, reading about asset division, even calculating potential alimony payments. The room went quiet. She's planning to file first, Mike said grimly. Looks like it. And she's been smart about it, gathering information, building a financial cushion, probably trying to figure out the best timing to maximize her settlement. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger this time, but clarity. Lisa wasn't just having an affair. She was strategically positioning herself to destroy our marriage on her own terms, in her own timeline, for her own maximum benefit. How long do I have? I asked. Hard to say, Mike replied. Could be weeks, could be months. But Chris, you need to understand. If she files first, especially if she can claim abandonment or emotional neglect, it could affect the custody arrangement and property division. So I file first. That's one option. I looked at the evidence again. The hotel receipts, the cash withdrawals, the photos of Lisa and Jake holding hands over expensive dinners paid for with money I'd earned driving truck through 14-hour days. No, I said slowly. Filing first is defensive. I want to go on offense. Janet raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? I turned to Mike. Jake works in pharmaceutical sales, right? That's a regulated industry. What happens if a sales rep gets caught up in fraud allegations? Depends on the specifics, but it could affect his license, his employment, his ability to work in the field. And if someone were to report unethical behavior to his employer or file a complaint with industry regulators? Mike held up a hand. Chris, be very careful here. Anything that looks like harassment or false reporting could blow back on you. I'm not talking about false reporting. I'm talking about exposing real behavior that just happens to violate professional standards. I pulled up Jake's LinkedIn profile on my phone. He's been posting about his sales success, his client relationships, his work-life balance. What if someone were to point out to his employer that he's been conducting personal relationships with clients during work hours? That he's been using company resources for personal gain? Is Lisa a client? The dental office where she works orders supplies from his company. He's been mixing business with pleasure, literally. Janet was grinning now. That's actually brilliant. Most pharmaceutical companies have strict policies about personal relationships with accounts. And if his sales numbers take a hit because he loses accounts, if his reputation in the industry gets damaged, I shrugged. Well, that's just the natural consequence of his choices. Mike looked uncomfortable. You're talking about going after his livelihood. He went after my marriage. Fair's fair. Chris. Mike, this guy has been sleeping with my wife in hotel rooms paid for with money I earned. He's been posting about their dates on social media. He's been coming to my house, eating my food, playing with my kids, all while screwing my wife behind my back. I stood up, feeling calmer than I had in weeks. I'm not going to hurt him physically, and I'm not going to do anything illegal, but I'm absolutely going to make sure there are consequences for his actions. Janet was scrolling through her laptop. There's something else. Jake's been claiming business expenses for a lot of those restaurant dinners. If he's been writing off personal dates as business meals. Tax fraud, Mike said quietly. Potential tax fraud. And his company would definitely want to know about that. I felt a smile spreading across my face. How detailed are those records? Very detailed. Dates, times, amounts, locations. And I can cross-reference them with Lisa's GPS data to prove they were personal meetings, not business. Perfect, Mike sighed. You're sure about this? Dead sure. Jake Dale wants to destroy my family? He just cost himself his career. The complaint I filed with Jake's employer was a masterpiece of professional documentation. Every dinner, every hotel meeting, every instance where he'd mixed business with his affair with Lisa, all of it laid out in precise detail with supporting evidence. The complaint to the IRS about his fraudulent business expense claims was even better. But the real knockout punch was the anonymous tip I sent to a Philadelphia business blogger who specialized in exposing unethical sales practices. The story, complete with redacted screenshots and documentation, went viral within hours. Pharmaceutical rep caught using company resources for extramarital affair. Trending on local social media wasn't exactly how I'd pictured ending Jake Dale's career, but it was effective. His LinkedIn profile disappeared the next day. By Friday, Lisa was getting frantic phone calls that she tried to take in private. I don't know what happened, I heard her saying to someone, presumably Jake, while I was downstairs making dinner for the kids. They won't tell me anything except that there's an ongoing investigation into compliance violations. Brooke looked up from her homework. Is Mom okay? She seems stressed. Work stuff, probably, I said, stirring the spaghetti sauce. You know how it is in the medical field. Dylan wandered into the kitchen, headphones around his neck. Dad, do you know why Mom's been crying? I heard her on the phone earlier. I felt a brief stab of something that might have been guilt. Might have been. Sometimes grown-ups have bad days at work, I said. She'll be fine. But even as I said it, I was planning my next move. Because taking down Jake was just the opening play. The real game was about to begin. That weekend, while Lisa was upstairs having increasingly desperate phone calls with her now unemployed boyfriend, I met with Mike Rodriguez to finalize the divorce paperwork. Pennsylvania requires a 90-day separation period before the divorce can be finalized, he explained. But we can file the initial papers now and start the clock. What about custody? Joint legal custody is the default, and given the kids' ages, their preferences will carry significant weight. The financial evidence you've gathered could affect the property division significantly. I looked at the papers spread across Mike's desk. 18 years of marriage reduced to legal terminology and asset division. Do it, I said. File everything. Chris, are you sure you don't want to try counseling? Mediation? This is going to get messy. I thought about Lisa upstairs, probably texting Jake about job applications and exit strategies, about Brooke asking if everything was okay, about Dylan's innocent trust in his family's stability. She made her choice when she started sneaking around 4 months ago, I said. I'm just making sure she lives with the consequences. Mike nodded and started organizing the papers. I'll have these filed Monday morning. Lisa will be served by Wednesday. Make sure the kids are at school when it happens. Already planned for it. I stood to leave, then turned back. Mike, thanks for everything. I know this isn't the kind of case you usually handle. Chris, I've been doing this for 20 years. Trust me. You're handling this exactly right. Stay smart, stay calm, and don't let emotion make you do anything stupid. Too late for emotion, I said. This is pure business now. Lisa was served with divorce papers on a Wednesday morning while the kids were at school, and she was supposed to be at work. Instead, she was at home, on her laptop, probably helping Jake revise his resume. I was 40 miles away, delivering medical supplies to a clinic in Norristown, when my phone started buzzing with increasingly frantic calls from Lisa. I let them all go to voicemail. The first message was confusion. Chris, what the hell is this? Call me back right now. The second was anger. I can't believe you're doing this without even talking to me first. The third was desperation. Please, we need to discuss this. The kids don't know anything. We can work this out. The fourth was rage. You son of a bitch, you've been planning this whole thing? You destroyed Jake's career, didn't you? I deleted all the messages without responding. That evening, I came home to find Lisa waiting in the kitchen with her phone recording. Turn that off, I said calmly, setting down my keys. I want to document this conversation. Pennsylvania's a two-party consent state for recording. Turn it off, or I'm leaving. She reluctantly put the phone away. Chris, we need to talk. About what? About this. She waved the divorce papers in the air. About whatever you think is happening. About working things out for the kids. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married at 26, who'd been my partner for 18 years, who'd given me 2 incredible children. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of everything that had been exposed. How long? I asked. What? How long have you been sleeping with Jake? Her face went white. Chris, 4 months? 6 months? A year? I've got GPS records, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and photographs, Lisa. I know about the Victoria's Secret charges, the cash withdrawals, the business dinners you wrote off on our taxes. I sat down at the kitchen table, suddenly exhausted. I know about all of it. She collapsed into the chair across from me, all the fight going out of her. 6 months, she said quietly. Why? I don't know. I do know, but... She rubbed her temples. You're always working, Chris. 14-hour days, weekend deliveries, always on the phone with suppliers or dispatch. And I'm here with the kids, managing everything, trying to build my own thing with the Instagram stuff, and I felt invisible. So you decided to screw your coworker. It wasn't supposed to happen. Jake was helping me with some business connections, introducing me to potential sponsors, and we connected. I stared at her. Business connections? He knows people in marketing and social media. He was going to help me grow my brand. Lisa, Jake sold medical supplies to dental offices. He didn't know anything about social media marketing. He said whatever you wanted to hear so he could get you into bed. She flinched like I'd slapped her. $20,000, I said. That's how much you've spent on this affair. 20 grand in hotel rooms and dinners and clothes for your boyfriend, while I've been working 60-hour weeks to keep this family afloat. I was going to pay it back. With what? Your part-time dental hygienist salary? Tears were running down her face now. Chris, I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through this together. You were planning to leave me anyway. You've been researching divorce lawyers for weeks. Her mouth opened and closed without sound. You weren't going to work through anything, Lisa. You were going to wait until you had everything lined up perfectly. The financial settlement, the custody arrangement, maybe a new job lined up for Jake. And then you were going to file for divorce on your terms. That's not... I found your browser history. I know about the lawyer consultations, the asset calculations, all of it. I stood up. The only thing you're sorry about is getting caught before you could execute your plan. She was sobbing now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no anger, no regret. Just a cold, clear understanding of exactly who my wife really was. Where are the kids? She managed to ask through her tears. Dylan's at a friend's house. Brooke's at cheer practice. They'll be home in a couple hours. What are we going to tell them? We're going to tell them the truth. That you've been having an affair, that you've been lying to all of us, and that we're getting divorced. Chris, please. You made your choice, Lisa. Now you get to live with it. I walked past her toward the stairs, then stopped. Oh, and Lisa, Jake's career is over. His employer fired him yesterday, and the IRS is auditing his tax returns for the past 3 years. So whatever future you two had planned together, you might want to recalculate. I left her crying at the kitchen table and went upstairs to figure out how to tell my children that their family was over. Brooke took the news better than I'd expected. She listened quietly while I explained the situation, keeping the details age-appropriate but not sugarcoating the reality, and then asked the same question she'd asked weeks earlier. So you knew this was happening? I suspected. Then I confirmed it. And now you're getting divorced? Yes. She nodded slowly. Good. Good? Dad, she's been making everyone in this family miserable for months. Dylan and I both knew something was wrong. At least now we know what it was, and we know it's not our fault. Dylan's reaction was more emotional. Tears, anger, questions about whether he'd still get to see both of us. I assured him that nothing would change in terms of our relationship, that I'd always be his father and I'd always be there for him. Is Mom going to live with that Jake guy? He asked. I don't know, buddy. That's up to her. Good, because he's kind of a jerk. He always talked to me like I was stupid. Lisa spent the next few days alternating between apologies, anger, and desperate attempts to negotiate some kind of reconciliation. But the momentum had shifted irrevocably. The kids knew the truth. The financial evidence was overwhelming. And Jake, her safety net, her exit strategy, was unemployed and facing a potential criminal investigation. Mike Rodriguez called on Friday with an update. Lisa's lawyer wants to meet, he said. They're looking for a settlement discussion. What kind of settlement? 50-50 split of assets, joint custody, no alimony claims. I laughed. After she spent 20 grand on her affair? After she was planning to leave me anyway? Tell them to try again. Chris, that's actually a reasonable offer. Pennsylvania law presumes equal distribution of marital assets. Pennsylvania law also allows courts to consider dissipation of marital assets. She stole $20,000 from our marriage to fund her relationship with another man. I want that money back, plus damages. The court might not. Mike, I'm not interested in being reasonable. She wasn't reasonable when she was sleeping with Jake in hotel rooms I paid for. I want every dollar she spent on that affair to come out of her share of the settlement. And if she won't agree? Then we go to trial, and I present all the evidence to a judge. Hotel receipts, GPS records, photographs, financial statements, everything. I paused. How do you think that's going to look in family court? Mike was quiet for a moment. You're playing hardball. I'm playing to win. Okay, I'll set up the meeting. The settlement conference was scheduled for the following Tuesday in a sterile conference room at Mike's law firm. Lisa arrived with her attorney, a sharp-dressed woman who looked like she specialized in high-conflict divorces. I'd expected Lisa to look defeated, maybe desperate. Instead, she looked angry, focused, like she'd decided to fight back. My client is willing to negotiate, her lawyer began, but she's not going to be bullied into an unfair settlement. Unfair? Mike laid out the financial evidence on the conference table. Your client spent $20,000 of marital assets on an extramarital affair. She used joint credit cards to pay for hotel rooms where she conducted this affair. She withdrew cash from joint accounts to fund personal expenses related to this relationship. Marital assets are marital assets, the lawyer replied smoothly. How they're spent during the marriage doesn't affect the presumption of equal distribution. In Pennsylvania, courts can consider dissipation of marital assets when dividing property. Mike shot back. $20,000 spent on an affair is textbook dissipation. Lisa's lawyer turned to me. Mr. Castellano, what exactly are you looking for here? I want my $20,000 back. I want her to reimburse me for every penny she spent on her boyfriend. And I want primary custody of my children. That's not going to happen, Lisa spoke for the first time. I'm not going to be punished financially for the failure of our marriage. I looked at her across the table. You're not being punished for the failure of our marriage. You're being held accountable for stealing money to fund your affair. I didn't steal anything. You took money from our joint accounts and spent it on hotel rooms with another man. If that's not theft, what is it? Her face flushed red. Our marriage was over long before Jake came along, Chris. You know that. You were never here, never present, always working or thinking about work. So you decided to solve that problem by sleeping with your coworker. I decided to find someone who actually paid attention to me. The room went quiet. Lisa's lawyer looked uncomfortable. This isn't productive, Mike said finally. Let's focus on the financial issues. But I was staring at Lisa, seeing her clearly for maybe the first time in years. You know what? I said. You're right. Our marriage was probably over before Jake. But instead of talking to me about it, instead of suggesting counseling or separation or anything else, you decided to have an affair. And then you decided to spend our money I earned, to fund that affair while planning to leave me anyway. I stood up. So here's my final offer. You pay back every penny you spent on Jake. You get 30% of the remaining marital assets. I get primary custody. You get every other weekend. No alimony, no spousal support, no ongoing financial connection between us. That's ridiculous, her lawyer started. Or, I continued, we go to trial, and I present all of this evidence to a judge. Hotel receipts, GPS records, photographs, financial statements, social media posts, everything. And then we let the court decide how much sympathy they have for a woman who stole money from her family to fund an affair. Lisa was staring at me with something that looked like hatred. What's it going to be? I asked. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear. Lisa shook her head violently. We need time to consider, the lawyer said. You have 48 hours, Mike replied. After that, we file a motion for temporary support and asset preservation, and this gets a lot more expensive for everyone. As Lisa and her lawyer gathered their papers, she looked at me one more time. You really destroyed Jake's career, didn't you? Jake destroyed his own career. I just made sure the right people knew about it. You're vindictive. I'm thorough. She left without another word. Mike and I sat in the conference room for a few minutes after they were gone. Think she'll take the deal? He asked. She doesn't have much choice. Her boyfriend's unemployed. She can't afford a lengthy court battle, and the evidence is overwhelming. And if she doesn't? I thought about Brooke and Dylan, about the house on Maple Street, about 18 years of marriage that had ended with hotel receipts and GPS coordinates. Then we destroy her in court and move on with our lives. Lisa accepted the settlement 2 days before the 48-hour deadline. She would pay back the $20,000 she'd spent on her affair, money she'd have to borrow since Jake was unemployed and couldn't help. She would get 30% of the remaining marital assets. I would get primary custody, and she would get every other weekend plus one evening per week. The house would be sold, and we'd split the proceeds according to the asset division. Lisa would find her own place, probably a small apartment, given her financial situation. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday morning in October. 6 months after I'd found that shirt at the dry cleaners, 18 years of marriage was over. I expected to feel something, sadness, regret, maybe even relief. Instead, I felt empty, like I'd completed a long delivery route and was ready for the next one. Brooke and Dylan adjusted better than I'd hoped. They stayed with me during the week and visited Lisa on weekends. The routine worked, mostly because everyone knew exactly where they stood. Jake never found another job in pharmaceutical sales. The industry was small, and his reputation preceded him wherever he applied. Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in Jersey, probably still trying to figure out how his perfect plan had fallen apart so spectacularly. Lisa's Instagram influencer dreams died with her relationship. Without Jake's imaginary business connections, and without the financial cushion of our joint accounts, she couldn't afford the lifestyle she'd been promoting. Her follower count dropped from 15,000 to maybe 300, mostly local people who felt sorry for her. She moved in with her sister in North Philly and took a full-time job at a different dental practice. We barely spoke except when it concerned the kids. A year after the divorce was finalized, I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. The trucking business was booming, and I'd parlayed my reputation for reliability into a consulting gig helping other drivers optimize their routes and build relationships with suppliers. I'd also started dating again. Nothing serious, Just dinner with a woman I'd met through Dylan's gaming community, whose son was also into streaming. She was smart, funny, and refreshingly honest about what she wanted from life. The kids were thriving. Brooke got that cheer scholarship she'd been working toward, and Dylan's streaming audience had grown to over 1,000 regular viewers. They both seemed happier, more relaxed, like a weight had been lifted from the house. "Dad," Brooke said one evening while we were making dinner together, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "Are you glad you got divorced?" I thought about it while I stirred the pasta sauce, the same sauce Lisa used to make, but somehow it tasted better now. "I'm glad I found out the truth," I said finally. "Whatever happened after that was just consequences." "Do you miss being married?" "I miss being married to the person I thought your mom was, but that person probably never existed." Brooke nodded, like that made sense to her. "What about you?" I asked. "Do you miss the way things were before?" "No," she said without hesitation. "This is better. More honest." That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in my truck in the driveway and looked at our house. My house now. It was smaller without Lisa's constant social media setup, quieter without her phone calls and video recordings. But it felt solid in a way it hadn't for months. I pulled out my phone and deleted the GPS tracking app I'd used to monitor Lisa's movements. I didn't need it anymore. Then I started the truck and pulled out of the driveway. There was a late delivery I'd promised to handle for a regular client, medical supplies that needed to be in Atlantic City by morning. The GPS showed 3 hours and 47 minutes via I-95 South. Clear roads, no construction delays, straight shot to the destination. I had a delivery to make. The end.